All right, I'll shut my heater off and get at it real quick. I want to make this a fast one because it's freaking freezing, boy. Hair on my camera. Oh, that's the infrared signature reader. But all right, I wanted to cover this thing because I can't believe how funny it is. You know, like these people that are making fun of people that are talking about the flat Earth. I'm going to show you something really interesting and what modern science is built on these days. What it's built on. They tell you, oh, thousands of years ago, the Greeks knew and they added math and blah, 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 right? So by creating ratios and using geometry to mislead, right? That's what they did, was mislead people and teach a specific train of thought. And I'll get into that real quick. But before I start drawing crazy witchcraft symbolism all over my whiteboard there. But so you could have this argument about the flat Earth and round Earth and whatever. I'm going to tell you where they build that statement from, right? Even a third grader knows, right? I wrote that up there. Third graders know more than you do. Third graders stop thinking at the third grade because somebody demanded that they think a specific way. And I'll give you an example of this. When I was a little kid, I was in third grade. I used to be able to do long form division problems. You know, 579 divided by 23, and I would be able to do all of it in my head. In third grade, teacher contacts my mom. I'm supposed to go into some kind of class. You know, they test me, but I'm too rambunctious. They don't want me in the class. You know, obviously the fluorescent lights were doing some shit to my head. So my behavior was pretty erratic. I later ended up taking all kinds of different medications for a short period of time. Sucked the life out of me and my energy and the way that I behaved naturally. And my mom felt terrible and took me off of them. So it was like Ritalin or something, right? Like I was one of those kids. But so being able to do that math problem, the only thing that I can or ever was able to remember about it was that I used the number 9 to leverage other numbers against them, you know, against these other numbers. But I could do the whole thing in my head and write the answer out, and the teacher was getting pissed off at me. And so fourth grade, guess what we had? Fourth grade, and I don't remember how I ever did it, and that's why I was so fascinated by all this stuff I found about the number 9. But I don't remember how I was able to do that. And so fourth grade, the fluoride tablets, I doubled up because they were cherry flavored, and the kid in front of me said, I don't like cherry flavor. And I said, I'll eat yours, you know. And I remember doing it, and I was sick to my stomach 3 weeks straight. I remember that was like the first time I remember vomiting endlessly. It's funny now that I think about it, you know, like within the past couple of years I thought about that. But I remember getting home from school and just puking all over the place. So my point behind this Eratosthenes experiment, which I'm going to duplicate for you here quick, you could do it yourself, and you come up with the answers for it. So, you know, we have all these systems now. Third graders, the teacher kept telling me, by the way, that's what I'm saying about the third graders. No, you can't do it that way. She kept getting mad. Her name was Mrs. Hydock. But I remember, she literally looked like the Wicked Witch of the West, or whatever, the one on the bicycle. And so she knocks this out of my head. Well, you can't do it that way. You need to do it this way. And I could not understand it the way she kept trying to explain it to me. But I kept coming up with these answers, like in a snap, and she was getting pissed. Like, how are you doing that? You know, so I was run through for the, you know, this testing and, you know, scored high, I guess, whatever. They wanted me in the classes, and they decided not to do it. There's other people that have mentioned this before on my posts. Like, hey, you know, it was a nationwide thing at the time. That was back in, I think, in the 80s, maybe late 70s. I don't know, 74, 5, 6, 7, 8. I was probably 8 years old. So 74, that'd be like 81 or 82. And so anyway, that was where everything, like I was actually sort of dyslexic too when I was a kid, right? And I always say this, like dyslexia is the way we were actually intended to see things. And through these mathematical processes and stuff, this is the way they take away our minds to see things for ourselves, right? And I'm going to explain how they do this. I'm going to give you two different things. I'm going to show you the double stick experiment itself and what they based NASA's engineering and mathematics and trigonometry and all this stuff. They based all of this on a Greek guy 2,000 years ago, right? Talk about, the cart before the horse or whatever, right? You're talking about them stealing your brain in 3rd grade, or limiting its ability to consciously evaluate things for itself. And so, you end up with algebra and all these math systems that make all that shit make sense, right? That's what stemmed out of this double stick experiment. The evolution of the way we perceive science, right? Pretty silly. It's just silly to me. Like, now that I'm actually reading about this really, really deeply, figuring it out. And I've been thinking about it for probably 2 weeks or something now. And these people come on the Flat Earth post, oh, you're fucking retarded. And I'm like, all right, you never got past the 3rd grade. Sorry. So that's that thing where, so what I'm going to try to explain to you now is, that there's 2 people standing on a, there's a 6. And, this guy is standing here pointing at it, looking at it, saying, that's a 6. And the other guy over here saying the same thing, right? Hey, that's a 9. I could see it plain as day. This is what they did. And this is why the merger of the square and the circle is so important for people to understand. The merger of the square and the circle. As the Rosicrucians, all these secret initiatic schools, I've been through this before. The square, perfect square, you split the circle in half, you lay it down over the top, and this is the depiction of St. Valentine's heart. That's a Rosicrucian thing. The Order of the Rosy Cross, right? Freemasons tend to do this instead. They have a compass for making the circle and the square to make their 90-degree circle. This is a flaming heart or something, whatever. But, so St. Valentine was a Rosicrucian. It stemmed out of that time, right? And same thing with this. Now you've got the G, which actually equals the 7, which is God, which is the Heka staff from ancient Egypt, was Egyptian magic, the fabric to all life, right? So the number 7 is, I think that was where they get the symbol for it. So the circle, the square, the G being the 7 equates to 1.618, which is the golden ratio, which is the spiral of life, like you would see in my hand. 1 inch bone in my finger, next bone is 1.618 larger, next bone is 1.68 larger, 1.618 larger for the top of my hand. And I curl my hand up and you see that all nature has that shape in it, right? That spiral. My ear, my eyes, the way an embryo sprouts out into growth. So that is where they get the idea of God. God was Heka in ancient Egypt. Okay, so squaring the circle, and I'm trying to get to you here before I give you an explanation on the double stick experiment. All of this crazy horse shit, right, that most people probably going already, what the hell is this guy talking about? I'll explain to you. So they explain in squares or circles, right? You have a circular brain, and they make everything boxy and squared for you, right? So when I say they, I say the people that control the offices that are responsible for the limited education that you are forced to attend, right? So what is the similarity? Similarity between the square and the circle and the Star of David. Right? Going 360 degrees. This is 60 degrees every inside point, right? 60 times 6 points. It's 360 degrees. This all has to do with mysticism. Same thing in the circle. It's 360 degrees. When quartered, it's 90, 180, 270, and 360, right? And this is why the number is so important. 90, 180, 270, and 360 again, right? Every 90-degree corner times 4. Or 270, sorry. I said the word 6, I think. So, what these all have in common with each other, right? 60 degrees at every point. That's one is positive energy, one is negative energy, and in Jewish mysticism, right? The arrow, the upward arrow, positive energy, the downward arrow. Think of the pyramids, putting a star into the waters above the dome, right? So where did they get that from? They've all learned and preserved ancient Egyptian spiritual technology. And read the book by Christopher Dunn titled So. You'll be able to see all of the energy stuff is there. All the engineering stuff would support everything that I'm saying about that. Guy was an engineer for NASA. He was an engineer for NASA, right? So what I'm going to here is, now that you see all of these things in the digital square root, like the number 9 times 9 equals 81, the sum total over and over endlessly would be 8 plus 1, right? 9 times anything goes back to the 9. That is what they're trying to say is godly, or the all-permeating essence in all things. It's why they give it that shape, that symbol, right? The number 9 in my hand, right? Same thing with the number 6, equating to balance in ancient Egypt. And the number 3, these 3 numbers are super important, right? 3, 6, and 9. Father, mother, son, positive energy, negative energy, and all those 2 things as one whole are the 3 different parts of that equation that have to be there, right? So now that you see the number 9 will equal all of these things, you can see in degrees, the maximum we can go is 360 degrees around a circle. The circle determines all of the other shapes, right? So 180 degrees is only to here. So you've got 9 plus 0, 1 plus 8 plus 0, 9, 2 plus 7 plus 0, 9, 3 plus 6 plus 0, 9, right? 9, and again, if you take 9 ones, this is an interesting one, just go do the math, and you multiply it times 9 ones, you end up with an answer that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, again. So that's literally the shape you could build out of the math you do when you multiply 9 ones times 9 ones. Okay, so that is the number that comes from itself and will always return back to itself. So I'm telling you that because the square and the circle are both expressed by the number 9. So if they only teach you the boxy square stuff, the round and curvy stuff is never in your mind. You never get to see things from that perspective. Okay? So all of it drives control and dependency. Ever since ancient Greece, you need an expert, right? I wrote all this stuff up and I kind of told AI, run that through for me. And it put it together and compiled it nice for me. Please don't yell at me, Dale. So anyway, that's the story behind ancient Egyptian math and geometry at its simplistic, its earliest concepts were the simplest ideas, right? And these other things that are constructed, trigonometry and algebra. So basically what they're doing here, right? I'm gonna turn this down onto the table and you can look. Let me see if I can do this otherwise. So I'll shut the light out maybe. Watch now. Which one is it here? All right, so let's see what we got. Now, I've got a light source, right? This is what this guy did in ancient Egypt, okay? Or ancient Greece. Ancient Greece. Look at the difference in the shadows, okay? Now, look where that's where the flashlight is. That's local. That's a local thing. So the lower I go, the closer they get to being the same length, right? And what he would do is measure as the sun went around wherever it went and determined that the trajectory from the end of the shadow to the tip of the stick, that trajectory, whatever ratio that was, like 3-to-1 or 5-to-1, right? Compared to the one that was longer, gave him another ratio that determined that he would have to bend the earth, right? He would have to bend the earth into a globe for it to make sense. You know, and that's what NASA is built on. That's what the whole thing about NASA is built on. So if I go directly between the two, they go outward and away from each other. So I wondered about the shadows over in Australia, right? Like this is the ridiculousness behind all of it to me, you know, and I see it for what it is. It's all about obfuscation. It's all about congesting your mind with so much extra shit, and you keep needing other people, you know, to keep these systems alive, right? So that's it, right? That was the stick. That was the stick experiment that this guy did. You know, let's measure the shadows in two different places, and from that we can put together an idea on. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's freaking ridiculous at this point now. Which one of these? There we go. So that's it. That's the double stick experiment. That's Eratosthenes and his double stick experiment, and all of the geometry that he pounded into everybody's heads throughout all of our lives, and it's mind numbing, right? It's mind numbing. But they've taken squares and fed you them as circles, right? That's what our entire life, all of our school, all of our education, all of it is dependent, right? In evolution, mathematically, all these different sciences that are so complex, right? I always say the art of simplification is the way to get down to the core of all of these different kinds of things, whether it's COVID, the government overreach on whatever, right? But it's literally that simple. That's incredible. It's incredible that this is, you know, so basically these are both casting a shadow off of this light here, right? So basically, if I bent this, they would end up being eventually the same length, right? If I bend them just the right way. And he bent the earth, man. The surface has always been flat. The firmament is the lens by which we, you know, gathers, collects, and focalizes all of the energy projected up into it back down on Earth, you know. The cosmic order, the cosmic lights and light sources that we have, you know, the moon being a reflection of the Earth's surface. Again, you could go back into all this stuff with the United Nations depicts the Earth as the Gleason's map, the CDC, all of these different organizations that control things. Again, who is it controlling these things, right? Anybody that comes out of that or pays homage to that symbol, right? That symbol is not Jewish, just so we're clear here, all right? But again, like that's idolatry, right? They blame us in Christianity for idolatry and all this stuff. It's wild, but they're, you know, those are the people that are responsible for all these schools of thought and educational systems. Rothschild and Rockefeller buying, you know, spending billions of dollars on the educational system to teach all this shit, right? But it's a very complex process to understand these things, you know? That makes more sense than anything I've heard about the flat versus the round. Yeah, but that's the origin of all of it, right? That's what 3,000 years ago they knew this already. Like, okay, I just showed you. That's what it's all based on. So you can look at it however you want to look at it. This is a clear thing. You can repeat it. You can show everybody around you. You can, right? You see it for yourself. This is the truth of things, right? Is to simplify those processes. Say, hey, I don't need like all of that schooling that I'm forced into going and getting, right? It's unreal. It's unreal, the direction of the world, right? And this is where my brain is always at. So I know it seems messed up and backwards, but you kind of have to be messed up and backwards to see it the way that I see it, you know? Anyway, Howard Cloudy, Werner von Braun's Tombstone, Palms 19:1. Yeah, Tombstone mentioning the firmament, of course. Now that makes more sense. So anyway, I just want to put these to people so you can see. Right. So yeah, right. You can see exactly what I'm talking about. It's that they have. Hi, Michelle. Denise Howard. 6 turned out to be 9. I don't mind. I don't mind. Yeah, that's a great song, man. I like Jimi Hendrix a lot. Hello from your brothers and sisters to the north in Canada. Don't lump us in the group of the corrupt powers leading this sinking ship. Yeah, I don't. I'm telling you, it's cold out here. It's only in the 20s, man. I know. I don't want to hear it from you guys in Canada. I know it's probably like negative 65 or something like that. Queensland, Australia. Joe Smith, do me a favor, Joe. Start measuring sticks for me out in your yard. You got to just make sure that they're all vertically, absolute, right? So absolutely perpendicular to level. Plumb, dead plumb. Watching our Queensland. Yeah, sinking ship is right, man. Did anybody watch all that Davos shit from yesterday? That's all the comments I have. That's pretty funny. Scissor 26 there. Crazy how we all know gravity from Einstein, yet he is a part of the Kabbalah and the entire religion. Yeah. You ready for that blast? I don't know what blast you're talking about. They're saying it's supposed to be some solar thing. All of that is a bunch of bullshit, right? The solar blast is... I can't go out and touch the sun, I wish I could, like Icarus or whatever, right, in that story. But solar flares are, what they say is driving the aurora borealis. I've been through that before. Another thing that just really gives credibility to what I'm trying to say here. It's excited electrons, right? The electrons are driven out of mass by a stronger electromagnetic force. What's that electromagnetic force? It's up in the, billions of gigahertz or billions of hertz worth of electrical energy forced on all of us through these different types of technologies with like 5G, irradiation, and scalar wave machines, and it's a lot of stuff. The radiation itself, the stuff that these people are hitting us with, it's just a sickening thing, And but again, a light bulb works. Well, there's a stem in that light bulb, and there needs to be a source of energy for that light bulb to light, right? So that's basically the Ankh, the ancient Egyptian Ankh. Right, the ancient Egyptian Ankh is the cross with the loop on the top of it, right? But that's the depiction of the way all things behave. Life stems up from the earth, the root, the tree of life in every different civilization. And watch both Trump and Carney's speeches at Davos. Wild theater we are in, and it's minus 20 here. That's crazy. Minus 20 Celsius. Yeah. So cold. Gonna get to minus 40 with the wind chill. Damn, Cody, that's brutal. Watching that Davos would be pure torture. Yeah, I watched a couple of minutes. I can't even stand to hear Trump talk anymore after all this stuff, it's just like, and I realized, I was there at one time. I was the guy that supported all of this stuff. Like, hey, he's saving us from the Democrats, right? And then, I started thinking in circles and squares, and everything made a lot more sense. Like, holy shit, they're all doing this stuff, man. But I don't see many more. 2 feet of snow. Snow blast, Denise is saying. Okay. So that's it. Many read accounts of that bum Einstein was just another idiot when he was associating with Princeton's version of Skull and Bones, just another dipshit puppet. So Skull and Bones is also, the Bushes. That Zedong Mao, the guy that killed like 200 million Chinese people by starving them all to death through all of his inaccurate predictions and calculations, and some liberalized guy. He actually went to Yale University under a different last name, which is wild, right? But it would had to have been around the same time that the Bushes were there. That's Percival, George H.W. Those guys responsible for the CIA. CIA, which just recently converted from the Office of Strategic Services, right? It became the CIA, and then shortly after the war, World War II, Victor Schauberger and his Water Wizard book. There's like, I have this book out here. I keep forgetting that I have it out here, but in that book, he shows the first flying saucers, right? This is pre-1950 whatever, where they found aliens in outer space, right? So they've always been keeping this lie alive forever. These were anti-gravitational machines he was working on for Hitler, and it was like a gyroscopic disc with something at the center and something that, you know, one thing would run one way, one thing would run centrifugally the other way, and that was what created the levitation, you know, through that process. Where the hell that book is? I know I had it out here, but might be here. There we go, right? So, well, this is Living Water. Oh, Victor Schauberger. This book is on living water. But even if you think about the waters beyond, right? Everything works in a vortex, like a vortex shape. Everything. What is a galaxy? It's something that happens here on Earth. You know, when you look at the picture of a galaxy. So if that's a reflection of what's happening down here on Earth, right? There's a billion different things happening in the ocean. He said the egg was the most incredible shape that all things were bound to or come from, right? And the spiral of life inside of it. So basically, what people don't understand about the flat Earth concept is that they think we live on a Frisbee and you can coast off at the end of it, right? What I'm telling you is we live in a cosmic egg, right? That's how the Egyptians called it, the cosmic egg. Somebody reminded me of that, and they said it on one of my posts, but how all things behave. So midway up right here is the plane of Earth. All of this is just a different level of density in the material that we call water. So it's water reversed, is up in the sky. So you don't need to be a math genius or scientist or anything. And I mean, it's just through observation. You can see how simplifying any observable thing there it is. Victor Schauberger's designs for flying saucers. Right? He sells all of his technology to the United States government. And shortly after that, he dies when he goes back home. And we come up with jet engines, right? Remember the Germans, the Nazis had jet airplanes, and the United States didn't. Well, that's where we got our jet engine technology from. And this is what our modern aeronautics are built off of, is this beautiful man's great mind. He's my favorite author, or my favorite read anyway, my favorite person in history, I would have to say. So he was a fantastic guy, and you know, like these kinds of things, like I would never have read any of this stuff, implosion and biosynthesis, right? Like I've been through this book probably 4 or 5 times. There's so much stuff. The life and death of a forest, you know. You talk about climate change, for instance, right? I was building these the cloud busters and everything, and you know, I kept saying the concept behind it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work at all if there weren't charged particles in the sky. Right? Like that's the truth. If you take one of these cloud busters, and what it's doing is drawing static potential out of the sky and you know, replacing it with a negative charge instead. That's the simplicity in it. But you're drawing the static out of the clouds, and I can watch this happen out in front of my house. I mean, I wouldn't have the Air Force and the, you know, NOAA and Navy and Air Force airships over my house like all the time, you know. So I don't know why I brought that up, but you know, through all these observable things, right? Like, well, my point was there that those clouds wouldn't be there, and those cloudbuster devices wouldn't work unless they were in fact spraying this shit in the sky, right? And so they keep claiming that that they're not doing it. It's a conspiracy theory and all that stuff. But you can see for yourself after you do it, it makes it all go away. And my point there is, it wouldn't make it go all away if it wasn't charged particles to begin with. So that's the reality behind what our government is doing, right? And our government is not our government. How did they sucker, you know? So basically, Israel taught our security and intelligence services in squares and not circles. They're all on board going, yeah, climate change is going to kill everybody and all that, right? And this is the truth behind it, right? Like, we know what they're doing now with this shit. So, I mean, we don't have to make arguments. And you brought it up because I want to... What? Because I want to build one? They're not hard to build, man. You know? I can't ship them or anything now. Like, I'm in a pretty rough situation in my life right now. I am the Eggman referenced well beyond the Beatles. Well, the Beatles and the Tavistock Institute, look that stuff up, man. There's nothing sophisticated about them. I used to take pics of the sprayers up there. It would first look like tinfoil through this lens. Shiny, then flashes and disappears. I've watched many videos of you cloud busting, and I'm super impressed, sir. Thank you, Jay. You definitely have done your research. Yeah, well, I mean, like, you got to look into these guys, right? You have to look at all of the pre, the pre-1920s science. Like, our country. Listen, you have. I said, but our country, it was never even built for us, right? It was the new world for people that had adhered to the Christian ideology in a subservient way. Yes, I will listen. Yes, I want to be good like God says in the Bible that I have to read every day or I'll get burned on a stake, right? So the Pilgrims and the Puritans and all these people end up coming to the United States, America, and building this system, right? But, who wrote those religions? Again, it all comes out of Rome. It all came out of Rome through the Hyksos, from ancient Egypt, through Hyksos. I won't get into all that, but it's wild. It's wild stuff learning all of this and wishing other people that were on the same wavelength and same. I mean, it's an adventure for me. It's like I get to open up a book. I don't want to do anything else but read books. Literally, like, if I could find somebody that would finance my life just for reading books and explaining these kinds of things from an abstract concept, abstract mindset, I would do that for the rest of my life. I would love to do it. I would love to just keep on learning and learning and learning until the day I die. But it's interpretation, it's your ability to see, it's your intuition. Gotta do it, Committee of 300, I have that book. Yeah, I read that a long time ago. Fruit from a Poisonous Tree. I was in a whole slew of things there. But, that's, again, what was George Washington? Right? These are like the day walkers for these guys. So they couldn't be an actual Jew or an actual Jewish mystic. This was, so in the year, I think it was a lot earlier, but in the year we got to look up the book, 1666. A lot of crazy shit happened in the world in the year 1666. Look that up. But Freemasonry is the reason that the United States government was formed the way that it was, There's guys like, so I was in a hall. I was a Freemason at one time. I don't say that regularly, but I didn't go through all of the whole process of becoming a member totally. I started learning all this stuff probably a little bit before I joined, but I was curious, and the hall that I belonged to, Ben Franklin was actually a member of that hall, and it was, I can never remember the name of the town. I always want to say Lewistown or something like that. I can't remember the name of the town. It's down by Philadelphia anyway. But the things that you learn and the things that they say to you, if you adhere to the process that takes you up level after level after level, is they give you all of this shit that I'm talking about, through all of these levels. You start to see with both sides of your minds, and both sides of your mind, and you become more ascended and elevated and able to see different sides of things, and people don't do that on their own, and they have the, which it seems like a noble concept at first. And I mean, I don't know how complex it gets or crazy, higher up, because I never went through all of it. But, they take these things and they say, we take good men and make them better men. That was a big one I kept hearing. But it's the truth in a way, right? Like, you start to see more clearly And most people won't go out and do this kind of legwork, like all this reading and all this shit that I'm into with the esoteric stuff and whatever, you know. But great guys in it. They don't know yet. Well, I mean, it essentially breaks down to Jewish mysticism. It does go into Baphomet. It does go into Luciferianism. But, you know, again, like as they're teaching us we need algebra, they're telling us Lucifer is this bad guy and all that stuff. And through the Greek stories about Lucifer, he was born of the demiurge to Sophia, was the great mother, right? This is the Greek explanation. And he was the man, you know, so she manifested him into physical existence. And he was the great architect, right? You always hear this, the grand architect or something like that in Freemasonry, right? But there's a requirement that you believe in some form of God in order to be a member, right? That could be Allah, could be whoever, right? But, you know, this whole Baphomet thing, it's not like it's an actual person. It's just basically saying that there is a positive and negative in all things, right? It's the goat head thing with his two hands up like this, like Jesus, right? So Jesus is another depiction of this same thing, learning all this ancient Egyptian technology, right? All of those gods represent the same thing. Doesn't matter which one you're talking about. All of them, you know, and I know people will freak the hell out once they hear that about Jesus. They're Jesus, you know, as the God's son and all that stuff. But you have to start to look at it like it, you know, I don't like talking about it. I actually don't even like talking about that because I know the truth about all of it now. You know, the evolution of these religions, what they've been steering us into throughout time. You know, the truest form of religion was the ancient Egyptian one for me. And that was Heka, right? The fabric that holds all things together. It was Heka. And it was, you know, that is the electrical energy that we're all, your mind, your body, everything collects and gathers and is comprised of, you know. Yeah, I know. I mean, I have a lot of really, really, really good friends, good, close friends my whole life that are Freemasons, you know. And when I first started really digging into it, I started like, oh man, he's fucking weird. Yeah, maybe he is one of these like crazy fucks, you know, like wants to burn the world down, or, you know. And I mean, it's a hard thing, but you have to. It's like being a Republican or Democrat, man. You know, it's the way you look at life is your own personal interpretation. And your interpretation is built on the education that you were subjected to throughout your life. Education meaning indoctrination, not education as in higher learning or more sophisticated learning, you know. Have you read 1776 Nation Derek Johnson books, The Midnight Rider, outlining the military special operations ongoing, how the dash matters in the 45-47, how we get the corruption out and drain the swamp? Just curious if you have read up on him or seen him. No, I'm not familiar. Not the same wavelength, that they aren't doing what they said they would do, etc. As far as the government, they're never gonna. You know, once they have all this stuff in place, man, it's not going to matter what way you see things, how you explain things to anybody. There is going to be an impartial computer dictating the outcomes of everything. Your interactions at the store, the government is going to be removed. People are going to be removed. They might throw a politics show and give you the idea, you know, like the 1984 thing, right? You have the party, and that's it, you know. Yeah, the Q stuff. I mean, but yeah, I mean, you can't look at these things from a masculine and, you know, I'm going to kick everybody's ass and shoot shit and whatever, right? You have to see where these people came from, how they brought all this stuff to fruition, all the ICE stuff, all the government overreach, the Patriot Act, right? It's through our own inefficiencies, right? We don't pay attention to all of this shit. We don't pay enough attention to it, right? The things that are affecting your life. Like, these people are freaking the fuck out over ICE and all this stuff. And the Somalis and everything. I mean, the government took $20 billion to create a police service that isn't going to fucking stop after they get rid of all the Somalis, right? They get rid of the Somalis who are taking a couple $1 million or whatever, right? They took $20 billion, right? That is $1 million 20 times, right? Or $1 million, 200, that's 200 millions, right? No, that's not 200 millions. It's 2,000. All right, so $1 billion is 100 millions, right? So there, right? or 1,000. Holy fuck, I can't think right now. But my point, Q, I mean, yeah, it was hilarious. I mean, Q, watching all that stuff, it got hilarious after it kept on going. But I mean, I saw 3 or 4 of these things. People keep going, oh, there's a Q drop, there's a Q drop. And I'm like, the fuck is this Q shit all about? You know, oh, there's a secret organization underlying blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm reading it going, oh my God, like, is this real? Right? And then you finally start seeing this stuff about Hawaii and Lahaina, the White Hats and the Marines took over, you know. I'm just like, holy shit. I can't believe that I even bothered wasting my time paying attention to any of that. 20,000. Yeah, 20,000 millions. But whatever the math is. I know that it's 100 times, right? No, it's 1,000 times to get to a billion. So 1,000 millions, right? Twice. That's a lot of freaking money our government took, right? Just to round up a few Somalis. And that's a lot of money. But we're, you know, us not paying attention, not knowing what's what. You know? Bread and circuses, yeah. But that's all I wanted to say. I think it's a fascinating concept. You know, it's ridiculous how far we've been led by our noses throughout our entire lives without ever questioning shit on our own. And I literally think if I grew up in the fucking woods somewhere without any teachers or structured environment, I probably would have been even better off. You know, life would be enjoyable. There's none of this, you know, again, driving materialistic thinking, materialistic behavior. You know, this is what these things are all are, is to create dependency, tell you everything's going to end, you know, scarcity and everything. Fuel, gasoline, it's going to go away forever, you know. And the truth behind that, and I've read in multiple places, that oil is just as abundant. The Sheol, if you ever look up the ancient Hebrew map of the world, they say Sheol in it, S-H-E-O-L. Is where we get shale. The word shale for oil deposits, but just as abundant as the ocean, water, you know. Secret society pyramid, the more evil they seem to become, they all end up believing in controlling and depopulating the world, messing with children and adrenochrome. All right, so here's the thing about Lucifer, right? It's to drive duality, the creation of Lucifer, right? So there's different things I've read about this, but I'm basically, the way I can explain it, what Lucifer is a two-sided thing, right? He wants a two-sided world, and they changed the frequency of the sun at that time, right? So we know the frequency and vibration, all that stuff, absolutely is a thing. This light here is affecting the way that my skin is growing or the way my eyes see, right? I know that using a Rife machine has healed me of like multiple different things and promoted different types of outcomes I was looking for, you know, by using photons and energy and light. And so that frequency of light was put in place, you know, the god of light, Lucifer, the light bringer. You know, it's a science. They say that it's a construct, something that was physically created scientifically. And it throws a specific wavelength. But that wavelength, like when we listen to 440 hertz music versus the 432 hertz music, that wavelength of light is comparable to the outcome of the 440, which, you know, drove materialism through music and all that stuff. But the point is to create a duality, right? And so I think what these guys are is to protect that and keep mankind thriving. Otherwise, we would all live forever. We would overpopulate the earth, like for real. We'd live into the hundreds of years old. There would never be wars, right? So materialistic mind, you know, when you surpass that and you don't, you know, like I'm past it. Like I see through all of it in a weird way, you know. To a point, it's like I don't care about measurement systems and anything at this point. I mean, I'm a carpenter. I have to measure things, but I mean, it's like, you know, how smart are you with your IQ? Like, none of this shit matters that they have us, you know, sticking to. It's just messed up stuff, you know. He said, get the shot, and then it turns into a blur. Government is redundant, bread and circuses while the AI creates your digital twin. Yeah. The digital twin is a big, big thing. I think everybody should be looking that up regularly, the digital twin. But, you know, I went on the extreme. That's why I talk about this stuff, because that's the evolution of what led us into where we're at now, the bio-digital convergence, right? Like merging graphene with your biological cells to control the gene expression by using graphene nanoparticulates to bind to the inner cell walls and fuck with your mitochondria, binding on, by hydrogels, silica, and all that stuff. Like, all that shit was about mRNA. It was graphene. It was graphene. So that's modifiable from a distance, So reading all this stuff is why I stick there, because that shit gets you in a lot more trouble here, And when you see it from a more clear perspective, like, wow, this is how it became this way, then people are more easily like, hey, I never gave this guy a thought before, but I'm here, yeah, CRISPR, Cas9 proteins and all that stuff, reprogram and stuff, but they're doing that all wirelessly, man. Yeah, Joe, that's a good point. But high IQ is only a good memory. Yeah, I agree. And curiosity is what drives brilliance, I think. If you don't stay curious, you're not going to get any smarter. All right, man. But that's it, guys. I'm going to go. It's freezing out here. Graphene oxide. What are some steps we can use to limit its ingestion? I can't read it. Impact on us. As far as an impact, it's EMF waves. You're near standing waves all the time. You're always near an LED light emitting diodes with specific frequencies to modulate those things inside your body. Getting it out of your body. Horseradish, there's something in horseradish when mixed with, like, they did tests in tubes and stuff, but horseradish is supposedly something that's really powerful to help evacuate it from the body. I'm a firm believer, I don't know this, but I think that they wouldn't have kept on with all the booster bullshit unless your body actually naturally gets rid of this stuff, So, I don't know that, but I think that's why else would you have to keep on giving me more and more boosters over and over and over endlessly, and they're still giving these goddamn boosters now. We're watching something like when they came up with the household cold back, in the 30s and 40s and 50s, you got that you got to read The Invisible Rainbow. This stuff becomes extremely clear after you read the book, The Invisible Rainbow. It is it's the Bible for today. In the energy world, electrical radiation world that we are constantly in, all this shit will make sense to you after you read that book. But that's the best thing I could say about anything. It's about the graphene. People are still getting boosters in Florida. Yeah, it's amazing to me that it's still legal. Like, I went to the drugstore the other day to pick up, like, nail clippers or something, and I'm like, holy shit, they're still pushing these flu shots and Pfizer stuff, and like, these fucking guys didn't get in any kind of trouble over this stuff. Great point. Continuous boosting. Yeah, so, I think that your body would probably get rid of most of it. But they're putting it in everything. It's in all the packaging stuff. It's in all of the foods and drinks and whatever, through cross-contamination, right? If they're putting it in the packaging of all these different types of products, right? The car wax and whatever, right? It won't naturally bond to you. It may become a part of your eating horseradish right now. It's so good. I went the other day, I bought like 3 jars of and I was really surprised by one. It just took the one was like, whoosh. It sucked the soul right out of me, man. I was just, I felt like that. If you ever saw that Ace Ventura when the little African dude knocks him on his ass, and it was like, and he loses his breath, and he's like, ah! That's how bad it was. Like, I couldn't believe how bad it burnt my nose. But again, that's another one of the myths that we were taught in our lives, about having a cold and a runny nose is a bad thing, right? That's all. That's your body doing what it's supposed to do. It's taking contaminants out of the brain and evacuating them through mucus out of your right. It's all exosomes. You got to look up the exosome stuff. Bioengineered ingredients are that. Yeah, it's typically I think would be graphene. But again, once graphene is in and on everything, it can be remotely programmed to emit specific wavelengths of light. That's, what's behind the infrared and UV light stuff and all that, infrared therapies in your house. And they're pushing all these different things since COVID came around. Mushroom coffees and whatever, right? They said, all right, well, how are we going to get graphene into everybody? Come up with all these new things, right? And everybody's, I'm in the holistic crowd. Like, I want to do what's natural and good for me. Well, if you're the designers of this whole thing, how are we going to get those holistic folks to eat it? Just come up with something with fucking mushrooms. They'll eat it. You know, like, so you got to think like them in a way, you know, and they're fucking dirty. They're dirty. They want to bring this world into this idea of Lucifer, and, you know, which is, it keeps the cycle going, right? There has to be a negative and positive in all things. Like, it won't just be, just like ancient Egypt, you know, Ma'at was divine order. You know, it's another story. The Greek version versus the Egyptian. I'm working on that now. Between ancient Greece and ancient Egypt. Egypt was pure until a specific time frame. It was good. There wasn't slavery until the Hyksos got there, right? The Hyksos introduced finance and currency and slavery, right? Slavery is the trademark of the people who do this throughout history, right? The Hyksos coming from Mesopotamia, the land between two rivers. The Israeli flag has two rivers. A blue stripe on the top is the Tigris and the Euphrates, the land of Mesopotamia. The Seal of Solomon between those two rivers, Greater Israel, all that stuff. So they're coming back around now. You know, but it's these people who have always, right? They went into Egypt as the Hyksos, and they came out the poor, persecuted Israelites. They brought slavery to Israel, right? So, and then Greece, and then Rome, right? Same structure all the way through. It's been the same structure all the way through. And it's not, you know, you could say Jewish or whatever. I mean, I don't give a shit what you call it. You know, there's some people. I have a couple people, I mean, on my friends' pages that are flat out and blatant about their hatred of Jews and whatever. And it's not that I hate them, man. I don't, you know, I definitely, it's not about that. I don't hate anybody. I mean, I hate anybody that's trying to control me and deceive me and trick me into fucking being their servant for eternity. But it's complex, right? All of that stuff is complex. It's really complex. I don't know. I don't want to say anything bad because I don't think that it is all, you know. I mean, Bill Donahue always said, use green green light like plants. Yep. So that frequency, all of those specific frequencies, you know, harmonious things that are harmonious to life and whatever, they all break down to the 3, 6, and 9. Right? I say this because of the Rife machine. I noticed all the ones that are beneficial to, like, so the different chakras, right? 432, 111. 111, I don't think that's one of them. I don't know. But 111 on a Rife machine kills cancer cells, right? That's your 3. 528 hertz, same that your heart radiates, right? The same thing that the sun radiates on is 528 hertz. So electromagnetically, that same value in your heart is the same as the sun. The heart of the world, right? So 528 hertz there. 5 plus 2 plus 8 is 15. 1 plus 5 is 6. That's my 6. And then 432 hertz, you know, to sit and relax and bring your mind to divine order, right? To sit back and do these ritualistic things where you are trying to achieve ascension or some reasonable, comfortable, enjoyable state of mind, euphoric in some cases, right? But that's 432 hertz music that we've always listened to until Rockefeller changed it to 440 hertz, right? 4 plus 3 plus 2 is 9. So that's your 3, 6, 9, killing cancer. And it's like, even another thing is factually there is the song Für Elise. I can't remember if it's Beethoven. It's not Beethoven. It's Für Elise is, maybe it is Beethoven. I don't remember. But, you know, 432 hertz and the different, so there's 8 different frequencies in that song Für Elise. I was looking through a book and I found 3 or 8 different frequencies that had equated to 3, 6, and 9. 111 hertz was one of the notes in that song, I think, if I remember right. But so anyways, it's freezing. I'm going to go inside, man. And I wanted you guys to see that, you know, it's pretty simple. The whole flat earth thing is, and why it's there and why we're constantly lied to about everything. Because it keeps you stupid, and it keeps you arguing with people, and it keeps you professing through your ego that you are better than the next guy because you learned the system that's giving you the money. Well, the money is the way they make it all happen, right? Slavery wouldn't exist without it. And here we are. We're all the slaves, you know. So, see you guys.